and not recognizing the gods recognized by the establishment. Instead of saying, please don't kill me, Socrates faced his destiny and gave one of the most amazing public speeches of all times. The central message of the speech was that a life without being able to say what your own truth and without being able to self-reflect is not worth living. So he took a cup full of poison, drank it, and died that day. But his message, that a life without being able to tell your own truth and without self-reflecting, is still alive today. So I'm going to show you my modest approach on creating a tool that can help people to communicate their truth more effectively through self-reflection. The tool is called the presentation trainer, and I think instead of me talking about it, it's better if I show it to you. So this is the presentation trainer, and if I start it, I can start practicing my presentations and it will give me feedback on what I should do. For example, if I'm crossing my arms and I'm in a bad posture, it tells me to reset my posture. It will give me feedback about many things. I really don't know what it will tell me about next slide. Thank you very much. And so on. We already tested this version a couple of times. For one of the times, we have an experiment where some group received feedback and the other group received no feedback. And we saw that after each time they practiced a presentation, the group that received feedback, they decreased their amount of mistakes, and the group that received no feedback remained in a stable level of mistakes. We have also tested it in another way where we have people give a presentation, the audience assess the presentation, and then they practice with the presentation trainer, they come back, they do the presentation again, and their presentation was much better. And finally, another study that we did, I interviewed experts on public speaking. They were teachers on public speaking and expert speakers. And they said that the problem of a tool like this is that there is no right way to do a presentation. But that such a tool can actually help people to reflect about their performance. So we decided to add a self-reflection module to the presentation trainer, which, let's see if it worked. This is a self-reflection module. It tells me if I use my pauses with purpose. Not really, I didn't pause that much. How can I improve my use of pauses? Well, I can become more aware of it. I can plan my presentation and plan ahead of time when I will pause. That's what I did. My gestures, okay, the last one. I was in front of the camera, but is there a meaning behind my gestures? I think there was some meaning behind some of my gestures. What gestures can I add to support my communication? I think I could add more iconic gestures, because iconic gestures can help to paint in the audience mind what I'm saying. Then the attitude in my posture is the same attitude that I want to convey. Besides this one, probably yes. What would I do to improve my posture? I like it, so I will leave it that way. And this is what happens throughout the presentation. These are all the events that were happening. The green thing there is when I smiled. The dancing is when I was moving around from one side to the other. It also captures the times I was speaking too soft or doing ums and ams. And finally, it asked me what would I like to improve for my future presentation. I would say I did the pauses really bad this time, so that would be. We tested this self-reflection module with 12 participants. The participants were students of a course in entrepreneurship. So they had to create a product or a service, and they should be able to be good at communicating what the project or the product or service is about. So in one of their lectures, they had the chance to practice with the presentation trainer, and they practiced 2 times. And what did we use for measuring? We used a questionnaire that they filled in to see how they appreciate the module. We also took measurements with the presentation trainer, and finally, I was also taking notes on what was happening during the experiments. Regarding the modules, generally, they find it easy to understand. They generally said that it helps them to reflect. One of the participants said that thanks to it, he realized that his pauses were too short. More or less was the same with the posture module that you saw. People understood it, and it helped them to reflect. The same with gestures. And more or less the same with the last thing that shows all the events. It helped them to be aware of how they perform. Now, these are the measurements that we took. So on the first round, the first presentation they did, 70% of the time they were doing one or another mistake. But in the second one, it was only 30% of the time where they were doing a mistake. So if we see this, we say like, whoa, it worked perfectly, let's forget about it and have really conclusive evidence. But if we see from previous studies, we see that it was more or less the same learning curve. So there is something going on. And I want to say the interesting part, which were the observations. Why we didn't observe much improvement? What I saw is that, do you remember the last screen that tells you what do you want to improve? I pay attention on that. And for example, if somebody wants to improve their use of pauses, he came in his income presentation and was like, hello, my name is Jan. And after this pause, he never do one more pause on purpose again. The same happened with posture. There was a person who wanted to stand more open because he saw that he normally stands like this. So he started his presentation like, hello, how are you everybody? And then slowly returned to his old posture. And the same was with gestures. I observed that with all the things that they wanted to improve. What was really nice to observe is that without asking, without anything, when they were looking at the self-reflection module, 4 participants out loud said like, if I really want to improve my skills or my presentation, I need to rewrite my script. And for me that was like, wow, this is really the purpose of the tool. So, point given. And to conclude, well, even when participants show their appreciation for the self-reflection module, we could not find any evidence that it actually helped them to become better presenters. But I think with this study, we touched something that is really big. It was like the tip of an iceberg of something much bigger. I discovered that the link between self-reflection and performance is something that goes really deep. Before, we were just studying how to automatize the behavior of students. But now with this thing, it's something else. And personally, I think that it's worth going very deep and explore this link between self-reflection and performance so that we can help students to become better at examining their own performance. Because, as Socrates said, the unexamined life is not worth living. Yes?
Yeah. Have you thought about examine or train not only the performance but also maybe the structure of the presentation? I mean the speech itself.
That would be really nice, of course, but computers are still not advanced enough to understand the meaning. So we have to